Hi, I'm Dark Shades. This is part 2 of how to recognize an abuser. Now we've gone into part 1 with all the little signs and the innuendos, the possessiveness, the control, and the over-attentiveness, the passion, the displays of emotion, over-demonstrative. And anything that's too exaggerated, they're not so nice to your friends, they flirt with your mother, or really overly nice to get her on side. They do all those kind of things. So now we're going into part 2. And what abusers, a trait or a pattern of an abuser is that they always dress themselves up into something that they're not. Like they're very deluded. They spend a lot of money on their clothes and they brag a lot. And so, and they usually, beef themselves up, they go to the gym, so they're all, tough and muscly and all that kind of stuff. And they tend to show off about their successes. Their successes aren't all that. And I'm not saying you should put people down. And sometimes we have that. We don't want to come from a moral high ground. So when people and especially with black men, it's really, really difficult because they're coming from a place where they've been put down for a lot of their life. So when you hear them overly praise themselves and big themselves up, you're inclined more or less to endorse them and acknowledge them because you know that that's what they're not used to. But it can, in the case of abusers, that can be a trap. So you've got to be careful. Most people who have stuff don't really need endorsing. They don't need acknowledging. They don't need you to big them up and, prop them up. So when you see them coming out with a loud mouth and that tries to cover up their inadequacies, you know that they're a bit, you have to be careful. You have to watch them. Let me say that. Doesn't necessarily mean they're an abuser, but you do have to watch them. Try to assess on a date whether the picture adds up. Are they being true to themselves? Are there inconsistency? Are they just inflating their own ego? Some of these men, they have the Rolex, they have the sports car, and yet they work in McDonald's. I mean, what's that about? Yeah, so you have to make sure the picture adds up. None of these traits on their own point to an abuser necessarily, and it's highly unfair to judge a book by its cover. However, as this is dangerous territory and paints a picture of a character who cannot be trusted and is potentially dangerous. I had to read that bit because, like I said, you can't make generalizations with people. I mean, I'm giving you the tips, and I know what shape and form an abuser comes in. And I know I've been taken in by an abuser. I'm just fortunate that they were not one of those extreme abusers that mashed up my face, broke my bones, and all those kind of things that people are doing, or sexually abused me and thumped me up and financially abused me. I was fortunate that I never allowed it to get to that stage. But it did have the potential, and I saw the signs and I scooted. But what I'm trying to do for you ladies is point out the signs. So at least, even if it's not an abuser, you can build up a picture and see if, they have all the traits. They have all the traits. If they just have a couple of them, it just might be character. It might just be behavior. It doesn't mean they're an abuser. But you need to look at a culmination of traits that show you that something isn't quite right. A lot of times you feel it in your gut when something isn't right. It's, something they say or something that's a bit too much, or something makes you feel a bit uneasy. You need to monitor that and keep check of it, what it is that they said that made you feel uncomfortable. An abuser will equate jealousy and question the victim about who the victim talks to. They'll even accuse the victim of flirting with people that they know. Anytime they spend time with friends or relatives, they have an issue with it. They'll even make out that there's something wrong with the family or that the family isn't good for you. They'll try to isolate the abused or the victim. And, they'll show up at your workplace unexpectedly. I don't know what they're hoping to find, but they'll do that. You have to be careful, girls. So they normally get involved pretty quick as well. A victim often has known or dated the abuser for a brief period of time before getting engaged or living together. Believe me, I know. My husband, when I got married to him, he wanted to get married within 6 months. And all during that courting and the courting period and stuff, he was absolutely wonderful. He was perfect, in fact. Absolutely perfect. Anyway, he wanted to get married pretty quick. And I showed some resistance and I said, look, can't we wait for another 3 to 6 months? He flipped. He said, I've told all my effing friends and you ain't going to make a fool out of me. We're going to get married. And I'm like, what? You know what I mean? But I felt trapped. We were living together. There's nowhere for me to go. And I felt trapped. And I saw a side of him I hadn't seen before. And I felt scared. And I thought, bloody hell, I better marry him. But I did marry him. But as I was going through the aisle, down the aisle, all I was thinking is, how am I going to get out of this? And that is what that marriage was. It was about, how am I going to get out? How am I going to get away? Because I saw a side of him. It turned out he was a schizophrenic. I didn't know he was a schizophrenic. And when you're meeting people, it's not something you're going to ask. It's not something that's going to come up. I don't know how it came up. I think he ended up telling me, but he wasn't taking medication. He wasn't being treated for it. So it wasn't until I heard somebody told me something and I saw something in the newspaper, I thought, shoot, what have I got myself into? Honestly, you could not have asked for a more perfect person. Charming, lovely, got on with everyone, did everything right, that's what I'm saying. But the only time I knew there was anything wrong is when I resisted the marriage. And that's when I saw the other side. I also saw the other side when he wanted me to get pregnant. And I didn't want to because I had just started a job. So he flung a cup and it just missed my face by whatever you call it, inches. Centimetres, I would have to say. Just literally, I felt the breeze, poof! He threw it at me, said I'm a control freak because I didn't want to have a child because I just started a job and I wanted my maternity allowance. But I would not have known that if I hadn't resisted. You see, I was so used to complying and doing everything he wanted because he was so wonderful. I didn't have a reason to resist. And on the 2 occasions that I did resist, I noticed that aggression and that abusive behavior. So, one of the signs, ladies, if they want to get involved too quick, want to move in too quick, marry you too quick, it should be flattering, but it's not. It's a sign of an abuser. And the abuser will pressure the victim to commit to the relationship. If it's not marriage, they'll pressure you to commit and make you feel as though guilty for wanting to slow down the pace of the relationship. That's how I felt. You're kind of thinking, hold on a minute. It's that same thing about, you feeling guilty about wanting to take your time and somebody pushing you in. And when you listen to a lot of friends who have men who are not committing or have men who mess them around, and you have somebody that is all over you, and into you, and wanting to marry you, wanting to move in. It's just like there's a conflict going on there, and you're kind of thinking, I should be happy about this, but there's something inside of you that doesn't feel right, and you're kind of thinking, why doesn't it feel right? It's because you're picking up the traits of an abuser and a controlling relationship. The abuser will also have unrealistic expectations. They want the victim to satisfy all their needs. Like I said before, it's in my nature, if I have a partner, to do everything. Cook, clean. It's just me. I'm an old-fashioned lady. So if I've got somebody and I'm in love with them, I will do everything for them. You don't need to ask. So it wouldn't have come up in that particular situation because I was quite proactive in that department. But an abuser will want you to do that. They will want you to do everything for them. And if there's any problems, they tend to blame the partner for the problems, or they blame the friends, or they blame the relatives. So you have to be careful. Anyway, I'm going to stop this here, and we're going to go into part 3 and the final part in a moment. So this is Dark Shades. We're talking about how to recognize an abuser.